You're listening to Cars and Coffee, your local home for IndyCar, Formula One, and sports car racing news.
Here on 91.3 WHJ.
And now, here's your host, Nathan Ward. Hello, and welcome back to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJ. My name is Nathan Ward. We are back once again. If you don't know, if you want to catch the show, we are live here every Sunday at around 11:30. It's 11:32 a.m. on this wonderful Sunday morning. The way I start the show, usually I go through some headlines, some rumors, some basic things that I don't really go too in depth into, that I don't really need to explain them, at least on the at the level that I explain the other stuff I'm talking about. So we're gonna start with headlines and rumors and all that stuff, just to get warmed up a little bit before we talk about the true interesting stories that have come out this past week. The Indy Next Championship has switched to a 24-car, 4-car per team format. That doesn't really make sense as one sentence, so I've pulled up the Racer.com article that says that the Indy Next Series, formerly Indy Lights, the step below the NTT IndyCar Series, will undergo a change-up in the entry format for next season. As Penske Entertainment has done with the IndyCar Series, they have set a maximum of 27 entries. Racer understands that an entry limit of 24 cars will be implemented by Penske Entertainment next season, and in a related move, teams will also be capped at 4 entries apiece. The 4-car ceiling is mainly because of one team, and that's HMD Motorsports. HMD Motorsports is known through the IndyCar and Indy Next community as, that one team that runs half of the Indy Next field. There was a point that I think in 2024 where they had 9 cars on the grid, and the grid was 17 cars. They were 50% of the Indy Next grid. It was getting a little bit crazy. It comes with the important caveat that Andretti Global fields 4 entries under its own name, but they will be allowed to continue supporting 2 additional cars through the Cape Motorsports co-entry. So that's the 2 and the 3 car, which this past year was driven by, the 2 was driven by Sebastian Murray, and the 3 was driven by, what's his name? Ricardo Escoto and Michael D'Orlando. So that will be allowed to continue. HMD will still be able to support teams. So HMD will have 4 cars under the HMD banner. They will run 2 cars for Cusick Motorsports, which was the Dreyer and Reinbold partner team from the last couple years at the Indy 500, and 2 more cars in partnership with a different entrant. I imagine that would be an existing ladder team. So say if you go down to USF Pro 2000, I think is the step on the ladder before Indy Next, you have teams like TJ Speed Motorsports, Pabst Racing. Those teams that have drivers already, drivers that may want to move up to Indy Next, they may want to move up with them to continue supporting their drivers through the ladder. On paper, I really like the diverse entries. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of capping the field to 24 cars, because Indy Next and Indy Lights before that, it was really just a name change. But that series has struggled with car counts for as long as I've been watching. The first Indy Lights race I ever watched was the 2019 Freedom 100 that had a whopping 12 cars. Actually, no, 11. Something like that. But since the Freedom 100 has been removed from the schedule, unfortunately, and the series has gone back to, actual TV instead of being stuck on Peacock, they have rebounded in entries. They've had anywhere from 18 to 21 entries this year. Great. They've capped it at 24 because Juncos Hollinger Racing is going to come back with 2 cars. That's the field of 24 entries. Oh, one more thing. Chip Ganassi Racing will scale up to a 4-car effort for 2026. So, in general, this means more security in terms of how many cars are going to be on the grid and how many drivers are still going to get their chances in Indy Next. Drivers that are moving up, like Max Taylor. I think Nikita Johnson went over to Europe. But still, same difference. Drivers like Max Taylor, who are already doing great in the lower ladder series and getting ready to move up towards IndyCar. The other part of this article is that on the technical side, they are going to have some increased development for the Dallara IL-15, which is the chassis that Indy Lights and Indy Next has been using since 2015. That's why they call it the IL-15. They're going to replace the transmission in the back of that car. It has a six-speed transmission. It's got 6 gears. They're going to replace the transmission and the paddle shifting units that are the subject of multiple supply chain concerns. They will be traded for a 6-speed unit from X-Track, and a new semi-automatic shifting system will be part of the new gearbox package. So they're going to test one car with it at the Chris Griffiths Memorial Test, which is on October 27th at the IMS Road Course. That is for drivers who haven't driven an Indy Next car in a while, maybe ever, to get experience in an Indy Next car. It's basically the postseason test for the series. And it also allows Penske Entertainment to try new things. But for something in the highlights section, I probably should have done a full story about that, but I have other things that I wanted to talk about. Yesterday, I know nobody watches the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but I watched the Michelin Le Mans Cup because I'm a nerd. The Iron Dames, the all-female Porsche crew that's been traveling around all the global sports car series the last couple years, they have become the first team to win at every level of ACO sanctioned racing, which I find that's crazy. Like, out of all the teams to do that, I didn't expect the Iron Dames. Not because it's a female team. I just didn't know that stat hadn't been filled yet. But Iron Dames won in the Ligier European Series, which is basically like if you're familiar with the IndyCar ladder, it's the USF Juniors or the Formula 4 of sports car racing. It's very super tame, they're slower, they're less powerful. They're entry-level sports cars. They're one step below LMP3. What's her name? I forget who the driver's name was. But Iron Dames won in that category last year. They won in Michelin Le Mans Cup yesterday in their Porsche GT car. They've won in the European Le Mans Series, and they were the first all-female crew to win an FIA World Endurance Championship race. So that's pretty awesome. But the negative side of what's going on with Iron Dames right now is that the parent company, Prema, which also owns an IndyCar team and a Formula 4 team and a Formula 3 team and a Formula 2 team, and basically a team in any open-wheel academy series you can think of that's not F1, they're kind of out of money right now, which makes sense for how many series that they're in. But the Iron Dames program and the sports car programs overall could be at risk because Prema does want to focus on open-wheel racing. But the winning crew from yesterday's Michelin Le Mans Cup race at Silverstone is Marta Garcia, who is recovering from a back injury earlier in the year, and Vanina Ix, the daughter of... Was he a world champion? No. F1 driver, 6-time Le Mans winner, Jackie Ix. So that's pretty awesome. She's been back in racing she's been driving for a while. She made her Le Mans debut in 2010 or 2011, I want to say. No, 2009. But that's pretty cool. See the Iron Dames win at every single level of ACO-sanctioned sports car racing. On this side of the pond, when it comes to sports car racing, Porsche won an absolutely soaked Lone Star Le Mans at Circuit of the Americas. That race was probably about 50% safety car. It seemed like every minute and a half there was someone spinning at a ridiculous speed through the S's because it was just a river. The Coda's elevation change makes it incredibly susceptible to standing water, and we saw that a lot last week. It was a little bit insane, but it was the Porsche Penske Motorsport number 6 of Kevin Estra, Lawrence Vantor, and Matt Campbell that claimed Porsche's first win of the 2025 World Endurance Championship season. We'll talk about Porsche in the World Endurance Championship a little bit later. Robert Schwartzman took to Instagram to talk about the offensive rumors about his future in IndyCar. So basically, there were some rumors going around on the IndyCar Twitter sphere that Robert Schwartzman was not happy with the current state of his IndyCar career. He didn't want to be in IndyCar anymore. He wanted to go back to Europe and do something in, say, sports cars. Schwartzman basically had to come out on Instagram and on Twitter saying, hey, I don't know where you got that, but that is completely false. So, yeah, I like Robert Schwartzman, personally. I think he's a very, very, very talented driver. He's been incredibly fast in pretty much everything he's ever driven. He's the Indy 500 pole sitter from this year, albeit with a little bit of an asterisk next to it because the Penske cars didn't make it to pole qualifying because two of them got disqualified and the other one flipped. So that's a little bit of a caveat, but even like with the Penske cars, Schwartzman's still fourth fastest in his rookie year at the 500, which is incredibly impressive. So honestly, I'd like to see Robert Schwartzman still around. I'd like to see Prema still around because I'd like to still see the IndyCar field at the top, or maxed out, I think is the correct word. IMSA is here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the final time, not the final time, but it's the final time that the race here will be run to 6 hours. So if you want to sit in the grandstands for 6 hours and watch IMSA, that's this weekend. And if you don't, it's a 2 hour and 40-minute race next year. I really suggest, if you're listening, buy tickets. IMSA is awesome. I haven't been to a race myself, but I really want to. General admission tickets will get you on the grid. You can go on the pit lane, look at the cars, maybe meet some drivers. It's from what I've heard, it's a very, very, very cool experience. So it's great. 53 cars of all different shapes, colors, and sounds will be taking part in the TireRack.com Battle on the Bricks. The two major entries that are not on the list for this weekend are the number 5 Mustang sampling Proton car, which has been withdrawn because of a crash at Watkins Glen back in June, which does puzzle me a little bit because that was in June. It's mid-September, and they don't have a replacement for that car. Porsche was more than happy to give them another 963, but they didn't. So that's weird. But there's also, for any fans of the Iron Dames, we were talking about them earlier, but they will not be here. They are in Europe for the European Le Mans Series at Silverstone, which is actually just ended about an hour ago. So they were there for European Le Mans Series and Michelin Le Mans Cup. They're trying to get another Le Mans invitation in case they don't go to the full season of the World Endurance Championship next year. That's all I have for headlines and rumors. If you want to get in touch with the show, I'd like to tell you how, because I am always looking for new guests here on Cars and Coffee. Want to get in touch with the show? Head over to the Cars and Coffee Instagram page at carsandcoffee_WHJE and send us a message. That's at carsandcoffee_WHJE. I'll try to answer as many messages as possible. As that said, the Instagram is a great way to get in touch with the show, and I would be happy to have any guests on. I'd love to have people from within the racing sphere to talk to. Be great for me, great for the show, great for everyone listening. Reach out at carsandcoffee_WHJE. You're listening to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. We are going to take a quick song break, and we will be back with some incredibly silly IndyCar silly season news. We'll be right back. Here's February 7 by the Avett Brothers. Don't go away. Cars and Coffee will be right back on 91.3 WHJE. Hi, if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to a replay of today's show. I just want to say thank you for listening, and make sure to subscribe to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss another episode of Cars and Coffee, along with highlights from your favorite motorsport series. If you're listening on the WHJE website, go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just click the button below. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. We now return to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. Hello, and welcome back to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. IndyCar silly season got really silly really fast. So, by the conclusion of the 2025 IndyCar season, it was becoming increasingly obvious that Will Power wouldn't return to Team Penske for 2026. But it was unknown where the two-time series champ and the 2018 Indy 500 winner would land for next season. That was until Colton Herta confirmed his departure from the Andretti Global IndyCar team to join Cadillac, which is also run by Andretti, as a Formula One test driver. His seat was then filled by Will Power. Herta's move to the European side hasn't made sense to me, and it's baffled a lot of other reporters and fans. Herta doesn't have the required points to obtain an FIA super license, which is required to race in F1. So, the way super license points work, you get a set amount of points for how you finish in the standings of whatever series you're in. So, say if you're the IndyCar champion, you get 40 super license points. So, Alex Palou, if McLaren wanted to, they could pay someone to stick him in an F1 car in theory, and he'd be allowed to drive. Colton Herta is not, because he hasn't had the required super license points to do so. He never has. This was some controversy in the past couple years where Herta wanted to move to F1 when Andretti was considering buying the Alfa Romeo team. That never happened. Herta never had the necessary super license points. I just find it really weird that he's doing this, because Cadillac's two F1 drivers for next year, Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, are both on deals that last at least 2 years. So, best case scenario, Herta spends 2 seasons in F2 to get the necessary track experience and license points. All he has to do is finish 9th in the F2 standings next year, and he has the necessary super license points. And then, if he spends 2 years in F2, he replaces either Bottas or Perez at Cadillac in 2028. But, and this is a huge what if. What if Herta just sucks in F2? What if he's just bad? What if he just doesn't like the car? His driving style doesn't adapt. What happens now? You're out of an IndyCar seat, and what are you going to do? You're going to fire Will Power, who you just signed on a multi-year deal? Well, I don't get it. This move is confusing to me at best, because there's no guarantee that Herta will even make it to F1 at this point, because he doesn't have the requirements to get a super license, and also there's no prospective seat open for him. So I don't understand Andretti's rationale here, but even though Herta doesn't have a guaranteed F1 seat, he's still going to do the testing. He's going to be the test driver for Cadillac. He's going to test a previous car, which, since there's going to be a regulation overhaul next year, the testing of previous cars rule is kind of moot. So they don't have to test a car from 2022. They could test a car from 2025 because it's a completely different car. What I've heard is that Cadillac will buy one of Ferrari's existing cars, because that's Ferrari's their engine supplier. I don't know how concrete that is, but Herta will be doing a lot of testing miles. It's not going to get him any more super license points, but he's going to get car experience. He's going to get track experience. He's going to sign with an F2 team, probably. I don't know which F2 team that's going to be. It could be anyone right now. Trident just cut their 2 drivers, so that might be that might be where he ends up for next year and maybe even the remainder of this year, because Trident fired both of their drivers with immediate effect. That makes me wonder a little bit. But Power's move to the Andretti number 26 presumably frees up the Penske number 12 car for David Malukas. And I don't know what to think of this on the Penske side of it, because David Malukas deserves that car, for sure. But I think he could use one more year in a Foyt car. I'd like to see him win in a Foyt car, but I don't know if he's going to be able to. Malukas is kind of in a strange spot in his career after being cut by McLaren. He's not old, but he's been around for a bit. He's been around for, this is going to be his 5th year in the series, I think. 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah, it's his 5th year in the series. He's been here for a while. He's one of the more experienced young drivers in IndyCar at the moment. And putting him in the Penske 12 car is huge. That's a huge responsibility. You've got to fill Will Power's shoes. That is a massive responsibility for David Malukas. I am sort of torn in between putting Malukas in the 12 car and putting Rinus VeeKay in the 12 car. Rinus VeeKay worked miracles for a Dale Coyne team that was pretty much nowhere this season. On ovals, they really weren't a factor at all unless there was a major strategy play that got them into the top 10. But on road courses, VeeKay finished 2nd in Toronto. That's big. For a team that's that small, that is a huge result. He probably could have won that race if they just played the strategy a little bit differently. But that's big. He did so much for that Coyne team in the 1 year he was there. Kind of brought their confidence back. He boosted their confidence a little bit. But I don't know where I stand on who I'd want in the 12 car. I'm leaning towards Malukas because Malukas is younger and maybe VeeKay could take his spot at Foyt, so Foyt has a experienced but not old, reliable driver. Because Malukas is moving up in his career, at least in my eyes, and I don't think VeeKay is really going up at that same trajectory. I think he's a midfield driver driving for midfield to struggling teams and helping them get good results. Foyt is in dire need of a win, and I'd like to see one of the two, at least at Foyt. I think VeeKay goes to Foyt to replace Malukas, who goes to the 12. I think that's my final verdict on how this driver situation is going to end up. And then I think Coyne's going to sign 2 completely new drivers because VeeKay is going to be out at Coyne. That's already confirmed. And it is kind of known that Jacob Abel will not return next year either because he kind of had a bad year too. But yeah, I think it's about to get really silly, I think. So tune in 11:30 every Sunday for Cars and Coffee. You'll probably get your IndyCar silly season news if you don't get it online. Tune in at 11:30 every Sunday for a new episode of Cars and Coffee. And if you don't catch the episode live, here's how you can find it later on the same day. Want more racing news and highlights along with full show replays?
241.428 miles an hour.
Head over to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of Cars and Coffee and highlights from your favorite racing series. Just go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. So, if you don't catch the show, you can find it on YouTube. I try and aim for the same day. Sometimes I can't because I have other things to do. But I try and aim for doing full show replay, uploads to YouTube on the same day. I'm going to try and get this one out by 5 o'clock tonight. So if you missed the start of the show, just go on YouTube later tonight and it will probably be there if I remember. You're listening to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WSJ. When we come back, could Porsche quit the World Endurance Championship? We'll find out just after this song break. This is Fell on Black Days by Soundgarden. We will be right back. Don't go away. Cars and Coffee will be right back on 91.3 WHJE. Hi, if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to a replay of today's show. I just want to say thank you for listening, and make sure to subscribe to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss another episode of Cars and Coffee, along with highlights from your favorite motorsport series. If you're listening on the WHJE website, go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just click the button below. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. We now return to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. Hello and welcome back to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. Despite Porsche taking its first victory of what has been a, honestly, torrid World Endurance Championship season, the company is casting doubt on the future of its top-level sports car programs. Last Saturday, in the paddock of Circuit of the Americas, the race, popular racing media outlet, asked Porsche Vice President Thomas Laudenbach if he could confirm Porsche's presence in the WEC next year. He couldn't give any reassurance, saying, quote, "It's too early and we'll make a decision when the time comes. It's a tough period, but we will have to consider a lot of things," end quote. The biggest issue that Porsche upper management has with the current state of affairs comes down to three letters: BOP. Balance of performance is what the FIA and ACO use to keep the many shapes of the different sports car classes competitive with one another. The sanctioning body can change the ballast weight and air restrictors so the car could be heavier and be down on engine power if it is deemed to be too overpowered for the rest of the competition. Laudenbach's issue with BOP goes back to this year's running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, where he says that the Porsche 963 wasn't balanced correctly with Ferrari's winning prototype, the 499P. There's a reason for this, and it's kind of a wild conspiracy theory, but the base of Porsche's theory here is that the hypercar class is built on two separate sets of technical regulations. If you are a manufacturer entering hypercar in the World Endurance Championship or the GTP class in IMSA, because they share the same rule sets, you can build a car to one of two technical rule sets. You can build a Le Mans hypercar. This is where you as a manufacturer build the entire car, and you can choose to put a hybrid in it or not. So companies like Ferrari, Toyota, Peugeot, what's another one? I'm blanking here. Glickenhaus. Those companies chose to build Le Mans hypercars. You have greater choice over the design of general components of the car. And you can choose whether or not to put a hybrid system in it, to have an optional electric motor not for extra power, even though everyone uses it for extra power. Technically, the hybrids in the rulebook are for fuel efficiency. Yeah, totally. You can build a Le Mans hypercar, or you can build a Le Mans Daytona, or you can build an LMDH, a Le Mans Daytona H. The H doesn't stand for anything. Manufacturers build a car around a spine from one of four pre-approved manufacturers. This goes back down one step to the LMP2 category, where you have four manufacturers: Multimatic, Dallara, Orica, and Ligier. Any LMDH team can choose a next-generation LMP2 spine built from one of those four companies to build their car around. And if you build an LMDH, you have to have a hybrid. And the hybrids are all spec, and they are delivered to the rear of the car. So, LMDHs are rear-wheel drive hybrids built around the next generation of LMP2 cars until they refresh the LMP2 regulations. It's really confusing. I'll talk about it eventually once I learn more. Or an LMH, you have a four-wheel drive optional hybrid. So if you do put a hybrid on your car, it gives you four-wheel drive. The power deploys to the front wheels, unless some manufacturer does that dumb thing Nissan did about 10 years ago and builds a front-engine, front-wheel drive hypercar. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again. But aside from all of that technical jargon, the Porsche 963 is built to the LMDH rule set, which was created by IMSA. IMSA is not under the jurisdiction of the FIA or the ACO. Those two governing bodies control the rules for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The Porsche 963 is built to LMDH rules, so it's basically an American car. Laudenbach alluded in his interview with the race that it's possible that the BOP could be unbalanced at Le Mans and other events toward the European LMH cars, like the Ferrari, the Peugeot, and the, not the Glickenhaus. Who else runs an LMH now? I'm honestly, there are so many cars, I'm actually confused on who runs an LMH now. But Toyota, while those two categories are technically balanced against each other on paper, and they're very similar anyway in terms of maximum, horsepower output, maximum engine size, minimum weight, Porsche seems to be pushing for a unified rule set for the next generation of hypercars, which actually isn't a bad idea. Another factor that must be considered if Porsche is considering leaving the World Endurance Championship or IMSA is how Porsche is performing overall as a car brand. I don't talk about a lot of automotive stuff, like in general automotive industry stuff on this show. I probably should do that more because the automotive world is quite interesting. I have been following Goodwood this year. A lot of cool stuff at Goodwood this year. When Porsche released its first half of 2025 sales figures, these are going to be in euros, but that's just from my source. I was too lazy to convert these to freedom units. Porsche's sales figures were down in the first half of the year. They made about 18.1 billion euros, down from about 19.4 billion euros last year, which that doesn't sound like a huge dent, but losing $1 billion, no matter how rich you are, is not a good look. And the operating profit has basically been sliced in half. Actually, less than half. The group operating profit is $1 billion down from 3 billion, or 1 billion euros down from 3 billion euros. The chairman of Porsche's executive board, a guy named Oliver Bloom, warned that all car manufacturers were under pressure due to the current state of global trade. I'm not a political show. I'm not going to go any further. With all this in mind, Porsche may quit either the World Endurance Championship or IMSA next year to cut back within budget and streamline its program. If I were Porsche, I would actually quit IMSA instead of the World Endurance Championship for two main reasons. The first reason is that Porsche's won pretty much everything there is to win in IMSA. You've swept the board. You've won titles. You're probably going to win another title this year. You've won everything there is to win. Second reason is that if you run a car in the World Endurance Championship, you are automatically in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And an overall win in the 24 Hours of Le Mans is one thing that Roger Penske does not have on his resume. At least an overall win. And you are... it's going to be really hard to get into Le Mans if you don't have a full season World Endurance Championship entry, especially in hypercar. That's why I would stay in the World Endurance Championship and quit IMSA instead if you have to quit one or the other. If you don't have to quit both, or if you don't have to quit anything, don't quit anything. But if you have to quit one, I would leave IMSA, because if you stay in the WEC, you still get shots at Le Mans, and you can still complete motorsport in the eyes of Roger Penske. So it's really confusing. I may do a follow-up on this next week. Again, here every morning at 11:30 a.m., every Sunday morning, here on Cars and Coffee on 91.3 WSJ. We will be right back. Coming up next, IndyCar's not going to Mexico, and I think I know exactly who to blame. We'll take a quick song break. Here's Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. Don't go away. Cars and Coffee will be right back on 91.3 WHJE. Hi, if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to a replay of today's show. I just want to say thank you for listening and make sure to subscribe to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss another episode of Cars and Coffee, along with highlights from your favorite motorsport series. If you're listening on the WHJE website, go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just click the button below. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. We now return to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. Welcome back to Cars and Coffee, final segment of the day here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. Yesterday, IndyCar announced that a widely anticipated visit to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City will not happen for 2026. Penske Entertainment CEO Mark Miles had this to say. Quote, "For more than a year, we've been working diligently to bring the IndyCar series to Mexico City's Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. While extensive progress was made alongside the venue's operating group and our potential promoter, ultimately the significant impact of next year's World Cup proved too challenging to ensure a successful event given the available summer dates. While we absolutely want to race in Mexico, we also want to ensure everyone involved feels the conditions are in place to plan a world-class and highly engaging race weekend. We will keep working to bring our racing to Mexico and hope for an event to be on the schedule as soon as the right opportunity presents itself." Now, if you are looking at this on the surface, this seems sensible. The excuse, the alibi checks out. Even though the World Cup explanation does seem sound, there are a few things under the surface that I think kind of sabotage this a little bit. Liberty Media has taken more ownership/control in the track itself. So the company that owns the track, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they're a subsidiary. They're the Mexican subsidiary of Liberty Media, the company that owns Formula One. Formula One, of course, is sort of directly competing with IndyCar for American viewers. They don't want IndyCar racing at their track, most likely, because they know that IndyCar will pack the house because they have a Mexican driver and they don't, at least for now. The second issue is that Ricardo Escoto, who I mentioned earlier when talking about the changes to the Indy Next series, was fired from his Indy Next seat with Andretti Cape Motorsports mid-season. Why is that important to Mexico's negotiations? Ricardo Escoto's father was painting himself as the sole representative of IndyCar in Latin America. Yeah. So that could have, I think that messed up negotiations like a year ago, but Escoto being fired, when I saw that in the summer, I'm like, yeah, Mexico's not happening. I just knew. Multiple date shifts have been discussed. Originally, they wanted to do this in the spring. Then they wanted to move it to the summer. Mexico's co-hosting the World Cup along with several major U.S. cities alongside Toronto and maybe another Canadian city. I think Vancouver might have a match or two. But the World Cup is going to span the entirety of North America next summer. It's going to be hard for IndyCar to get any airtime, get any people to show up when the World Cup is going on, especially in the same city. So while the fact that the race won't go ahead is disappointing, it isn't exactly out of the blue. And it's the top reason why IndyCar may need a management shakeup. More importantly, maybe you need a new CEO. Because I'm not saying this because I'm a Mark Miles hater. Because I am not necessarily. He's just not going about this correctly. He's been at the head of IndyCar ever since they fired Randy Bernard in like 2012, which I think is the dumbest decision IndyCar has made since the split. I think what the dumbest decision ever made was firing Randy Bernard. But Mark Miles, I saw this pop up on my Twitter feed yesterday. Adam Stern pointed out that IndyCar has been trying to get a race in Mexico for nearly 10 years. And Adam Stern, on the day that this came out, which was actually yesterday, Adam Stern retweeted his own tweet saying from August of 2015 of Mark Miles saying, oh yeah, IndyCar will race in Mexico in 2016. Yeah, that never happened. So we've been going through this roller coaster for 10 years, and I don't know who to blame. So, I don't know. I'm mad a little bit because I feel like Mexico is a free money event, as I said last time. If you can pack, like, you've got Pato Award. You can pack that track with Pato Award fans and make a bunch of money. It really seems like a no-brainer for both sides, but I think Liberty Media meddling and IndyCar's mismanagement of the entire situation for the last 10 years has prevented them from getting anything done. That's my final opinion on Mexico. I may talk about it a little bit more next week if there's a little more information out on it. Now the decision has been reached about Mexico, attention now turns to the rumors of a potential street race in Washington, D.C. for America's 250th birthday, which honestly I think would be kind of cool. Like July 4th weekend in Washington, D.C. street race. That would honestly be really cool. Or a return to Phoenix International Raceway, which may happen, may not happen. We don't really know because there was that one article about it and then nothing. That's it for this week, really, here on Cars and Coffee. Thank you for listening. My name is Nathan Ward. I will be back here, not next Sunday. I may do a pre-recorded show or something of the sort. I may be moving the show to a different time next weekend because I have other stuff. I have other places to be. But if you want to find out when I will be live next week, you can go follow the Instagram at carsandcoffee_WSJE. And if you missed any of the show and you want to rewind and go listen to another part of the show from earlier, check YouTube tonight. YouTube.com/@TWIRvids. Full show replays every single week. Thank you for listening to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WSJE. My name is Nathan Ward. Here's Dreams by Fleetwood Mac.